I, 33-year-old female, met my husband during university. A mutual friend of ours set us up and we hit it off instantly. My husband made it immediately clear that he wanted to adopt children in the future, and that if I wasn't okay with it, I would be gone. For context, my husband was adopted when he was 7 and wanted to do the same for others. I also made it clear that I wanted biological children as well, which he was okay with. We ended up married after 2 years of dating and both completed our degrees. We currently have 2 daughters, Rosie, 5, biological, and Julia, 7, adopted. We started fostering when my biological daughter was a newborn and adopted Julia around a year ago. Since then, we stopped fostering and chose to focus on our family. However, I've noticed my husband clearly favors Julia over Rosie. He takes her out for bonding time, but either leaves my daughter or drops her off somewhere else. He doesn't tuck Rosie into bed anymore. He doesn't make an effort to go to her events, and he practically ignores her when she's at home, unless it's to do something for him like chores. I've brought this up constantly to him, and I'm at my breaking point. Rosie and Julia are both smart, beautiful, joyous girls. Rosie is both in ballet and gymnastics, highly advanced for her grade level, but has a hard time making friends. Julia has started cheerleading, makes lots of friends, but she does struggle a bit in school, which my husband uses as an excuse to not pay attention to Rosie. I'm currently 3 months pregnant with our 3rd child, and my husband's reaction to finding out was, "When can we start fostering again?" 2 weeks ago, my daughter asked me, "Why doesn't Daddy love me anymore?" And that was when I knew the problem wouldn't be fixed unless I made a drastic move. I contacted a divorce lawyer, and he said nearly everything would be in my favor. We have a prenuptial agreement that allows us to keep nearly everything separate. The house is in my name, we have 2 separate bank accounts and 1 joint account, which would be split. I would not be required to pay alimony, and keep one of our cars. My husband would be getting most, if not all, of our retirement account. Considering I make a substantial amount more than my husband, $200,000 a year while he makes around $55,000, I would be able to continue our lifestyle while he wouldn't. It also would likely prevent him from adopting more children in the future, which I don't want to do to him. The situation is ideal for me, besides me paying child support, assuming my husband would even be able to support our kids with 50/50 custody. I have no intention of keeping our daughters from him. After speaking with my lawyer, I gave my husband an ultimatum: treat both our children equal or I would be filing for divorce. He was enraged after this, screaming about how I'm a B-teach for trying to ruin his life goals, and saying how I don't understand what it's like for children who experience the foster care system. That our daughter Rosie was selfish, and she needed to understand why Julia needed more attention than she did. My girls ended up waking up from the noise and came downstairs crying. At this point, I was both trying to calm my husband down and comfort my girls all at once. Finally, my husband stopped yelling and I could put the girls back to bed, but I have to admit I've started to resent Julia. I know very well it's not her fault, and I don't let that affect how I treat my girls, but I sometimes find myself laying awake at night wondering how it would be if we just didn't have her. I always imagine myself with a toddler and our last one on the way, my husband loving all our kids, being so kind the way he used to. Again, I do not blame Julia whatsoever, and I'm very ashamed of these thoughts. However, I'm afraid if something happens again, I'll snap, and I don't want to shout at my daughters or husband. I have both girls in therapy already. Julia needs it because of her past, and we had Rosie go when started fostering. Any advice is appreciated, as well as criticism. I'm also willing to answer any questions. So am I the idiot? Also, these are fake names for my daughter's privacy, as well as a throwaway account. To add, paragraphs. Almost forgot. Concerning what would happen in the possibility of divorce, we had a prenup because I come from a wealthy family. To add, Rosie went to developmental therapy before traditional therapy. It was to make sure she wasn't being affected by kids coming in, out of the house if she gets attached to them. She now goes to a traditional therapist, so she has an adult to speak with outside of family. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the idiot. So he presumably wants to adopt because he believes all children deserve to be loved, and yet he neglects his biological child? You need to leave him. This doesn't seem like something that is fixable, especially as he does not see the problem, and your children deserve better. Comment 2, not the idiot. He has so much empathy for Julia, but absolutely none for Rosie. It's as though he thinks only adopted children deserve to be loved, unless he can get it through his head that Rosie deserves love just as much as Julia does. You have to leave him to protect Rosie. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading. 2 weeks ago, after the blowout with my husband, things took a turn I didn't quite expect. I had hoped that my ultimatum would be a wake-up call for him, but instead, it seemed to push him further away. He started spending even more time with Julia, almost as if he was trying to prove a point. Rosie noticed, of course, and it broke my heart to see her so sad and confused. I tried to make up for it by spending more time with her, but it was clear that she missed her dad's attention. One evening, Rosie had a ballet recital. I had reminded my husband about it multiple times, but when the day came, he was nowhere to be found. I called him, and he said he was taking Julia to a cheerleading practice that had been rescheduled last minute. I was furious. Rosie had been looking forward to this recital for weeks, and her dad didn't even bother to show up. After the recital, Rosie asked me again why her dad didn't love her, and I didn't have an answer. I just hugged her and told her that I loved her very much. The next day, I confronted my husband about missing the recital. He brushed it off, saying that Julia needed him more because she was struggling with her cheerleading routine. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was like he didn't even care about Rosie anymore. I told him that if he didn't start treating both girls equally, I would follow through with the divorce. He just looked at me and said, "Do what you have to do." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what my husband had said and how he was treating Rosie. I knew I had to do something, but I didn't know what. I decided to talk to my therapist about it. She suggested that I try to have a calm, honest conversation with my husband about how his actions were affecting Rosie and our family. I agreed to give it one more try. A few days later, I sat my husband down and told him how I felt. I explained how much it hurt me to see Rosie so sad, and how his favoritism was tearing our family apart. He listened, but I could tell he wasn't really hearing me. He just kept saying that Julia needed him more and that Rosie would be fine. I realized then that he wasn't going to change. I started to seriously consider divorce. I knew it would be hard, but I couldn't keep living like this. I couldn't let Rosie grow up feeling unloved by her own father. I contacted my lawyer again and started the process. I didn't tell my husband right away, but I knew it was only a matter of time before he found out. In the meantime, I tried to keep things as normal as possible for the girls. I took Rosie to her ballet and gymnastics classes, and I made sure to spend quality time with her. I also spent time with Julia, even though it was hard not to feel resentful. I knew it wasn't her fault, and I didn't want her to feel unloved either. One evening, while I was putting the girls to bed, Rosie asked me if we could have a family day, just the four of us. She said she missed spending time with her dad and wanted to do something fun together. My heart broke for her. I told her I would talk to her dad about it and see what we could do. The next day, I brought up the idea of a family day to my husband. He seemed hesitant at first, but eventually agreed. We decided to go to the zoo that weekend. I hoped that spending time together as a family would help mend some of the rifts between us. The day at the zoo started off well enough. The girls were excited, and for a little while it felt like old times. But as the day went on, my husband started to focus more and more on Julia, leaving Rosie and me behind. Rosie tried to get his attention, but he just brushed her off. I could see the hurt in her eyes, and it took everything in me not to lose my temper. That night, after the girls were in bed, I told my husband that I had started the divorce process. He was shocked and angry, but I stood my ground. I told him that I couldn't keep living like this, and that I needed to do what was best for Rosie and our unborn child. He accused me of being selfish and trying to ruin his life, but I didn't back down. As the days went by, the tension in the house grew. My husband started spending more time away from home, and when he was home, he barely spoke to me. The girls could sense that something was wrong, and it was affecting them too. Rosie became even more withdrawn, and Julia seemed confused and anxious. I decided to take the girls to visit my parents for a few days. I thought it would be good for them to get away from the tension at home and spend some time with their grandparents. My parents were supportive and understanding, and they helped me keep the girls occupied and happy. While we were at my parents' house, I had a lot of time to think. I realized that I needed to focus on what was best for my children, even if it meant going through a difficult divorce. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was determined to make it work. When we returned home, I sat down with the girls and explained that their dad and I were going to live in separate houses. I told them that we both loved them very much and that we would always be there for them. Rosie seemed to understand, but Julia was upset and confused. I reassured her that everything would be okay and that we would still be a family, even if we didn't live together. In the weeks that followed, I worked with my lawyer to finalize the divorce. My husband and I agreed on a custody arrangement that would allow the girls to spend time with both of us. It wasn't easy, but I knew it was the right thing to do. Looking back, I can see that my husband's favoritism towards Julia was a symptom of deeper issues in our marriage. He was so focused on his own goals and desires that he lost sight of what was best for our family. I don't know if he will ever truly understand the impact his actions had on Rosie, but I hope that one day he will. For now, I'm focusing on being the best mom I can be for my children. I'm determined to give them the love and support they need to thrive, even if it means doing it on my own. Thank you for reading. Am I the idiot for refusing to take in my sister's kids after she died of cancer? My 34 years old recently lost my sister, 41 years old, to cancer. It was devastating, and I'm still processing the grief. My sister was a single mom to 3 kids: Jake, 14 years old, Emma, 12 years old, and Lily, 8 years old. In her will, she named me as the guardian for her children. Here's where things get complicated. I've never wanted kids of my own. I love my nieces and nephew, but I've always been the fun aunt who takes them out for ice cream or to the movies. I've never had to be responsible for major decisions about their lives. I have a demanding career as a corporate lawyer, often working 60-plus hours a week. I live in a small 1-bedroom apartment in the city, which is perfect for me, but definitely not suitable for 3 growing kids. My lifestyle involves a lot of travel and late nights at the office. I'm also in a relatively new relationship, 10 months, with my loving boyfriend, who is child-free by choice like me. When my sister first told me about her decision to name me as guardian, I expressed my concerns. I told her that I couldn't take on that role because I didn't think my boyfriend, job, and lifestyle would survive it. She assured me that she was just thinking of options as a precaution and that she was sure she'd beat the cancer. I didn't press the issue because I hoped she would beat the cancer, and also because I wanted her to remain optimistic. We never really had another serious conversation about it. Now that she's gone, I've told my family that I don't think I can take the kids. I've suggested that our parents, mid-60s, retired, take them instead, or possibly our older brother, 40 years old, who has 2 kids of his own and lives in a large house in the suburbs. My family is furious with me. They say I'm selfish and that I'm abandoning the kids when they need someone the most. They argue that it was my sister's dying wish for me to raise her children, and that I'm pissing all over her memory by refusing. My parents say they're too old to raise young kids again, and my brother claims he can't afford 3 more children. The kids themselves are understandably upset and confused. Jake, the oldest, overheard a conversation among family members and then video called me, visibly upset, saying that I'm abandoning them just like their dad did. He left when Lily was a baby. I feel absolutely terrible about the whole situation. I love my nieces and nephew, and I want what's best for them. But I honestly don't think I'm equipped to raise 3 kids. I'm also dealing with my own grief, and I'm worried that if I take them in, I'll end up resenting them or not giving them the care and attention they deserve. I've offered to contribute significantly, financially, to their care, whoever ends up taking them in. I've also said I'd still be involved in their lives as their aunt, but I just don't think I can be their full-time guardian. My brother told me my life has changed and that I need to embrace it. I feel trapped with no way out, and most of my days are spent crying. Now, for an update. Thank you for all of your comments over the past 9 or so hours. I have provided a comprehensive update in the comment section. You may have to scroll down a bit. To add, for the record, my story is not a script from any movie. Maybe the fact that it is allegedly loosely similar to 10 or so movies and shows, and that many people have posted similar real-life experiences should help with the credibility of my post. The very unfortunate reality is that millions of people have siblings with children who die. I gave the kids fake names to be able to refer to them. I use the term video call as a generic term for video chatting. just like I use Coke for most colas, sodas. I'm sure there are many others who do the same. Regardless, I could lie and say he actually Zoomed or FaceTimed, but the truth is he actually used Skype. Not because he doesn't use other platforms, but my parents don't, and he was at their house at the time. He stayed on the call after I spoke with them. None of this negates the truth of my story. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the idiot. Honestly, you need a family lawyer to handle this, not people in a Reddit sub. And your sister willingly ignored your concerns when she named you as a guardian for her children. You've stated you don't want that responsibility, and with you working so many hours, it wouldn't be best for the kids either. And with you living in such a small place, there is zero room for the kids either. You'd have to either buy or rent somewhere else and move, while trying to take care of the kids and hope everything goes correctly while everyone is still trying to process the death of your sister. Comment 2. They argue that it was my sister's dying wish for me to raise her children and that I'm pissing all over her memory by refusing. Yes, own it. You refuse to dedicate your life to a dying person's selfish last wish. If your sister cared as much about her kids as you're supposed to, she would have found a different guardian when you told her you're uncomfortable with it. See, I'm not involved, so I can be the jerk and state the obvious here. Now, for the update, thank you for all your support and comments. 3 months have passed since my last update, and a lot has happened. After much deliberation and pressure from my family, I decided to take a leave of absence from my job to figure things out. My boss was surprisingly understanding, and I think he saw how much I was struggling. I moved the kids into my apartment temporarily while I looked for a bigger place. It was cramped, but we made it work. The kids were still grieving, and I was trying to balance their needs with my own grief and the demands of my job. One of the biggest challenges was dealing with Jake. He was angry and withdrawn, and I could tell he was struggling the most. He missed his mom terribly and felt abandoned by everyone, including me. I tried to be there for him, but it was hard to break through his walls. Emma and Lily were also having a tough time, but they were more open to talking about their feelings. We had some good moments, like when we all went to the park and had a picnic, but there were also a lot of tough times. My boyfriend was supportive at first, but as the weeks went on, it became clear that he was struggling with the situation. He had always been clear about not wanting kids, and now he was living with 3 of them. We had several arguments about it, and I could see the strain it was putting on our relationship. I was torn between my commitment to him and my responsibility to my nieces and nephew. One night, after a particularly heated argument, he told me he couldn't do it anymore. He said he loved me, but he couldn't handle the responsibility of raising 3 kids. I was devastated, but I understood where he was coming from. We decided to take a break and see if we could figure things out. It was a tough decision, but I knew I had to focus on the kids. Around this time, I got a call from my brother. He had been thinking about our situation and wanted to help. He offered to take the kids in temporarily while I figured things out. It was a huge relief, and I gratefully accepted his offer. The kids moved in with him and his family, and I started looking for a bigger place where we could all live together. During this time, I also started seeing a therapist. I needed help dealing with my grief and the overwhelming responsibility of raising 3 kids. The therapist helped me work through my feelings and gave me strategies for dealing with the kids' grief as well. It was a slow process, but I started to feel more capable and confident in my ability to take care of them. One day, while I was visiting the kids at my brother's house, Jake and I had a breakthrough. We were sitting in the backyard and he started talking about his mom. He told me how much he missed her and how scared he was about the future. I listened and tried to reassure him that we would get through it together. It was the first time he had really opened up to me, and I felt a glimmer of hope. As the weeks went on, I found a bigger apartment, and we started the process of moving in. It was a lot of work, but the kids were excited about having their own rooms and a place to call home. My brother and his wife were a huge help, and I couldn't have done it without them. We started to settle into a routine, and things started to feel more manageable. One of the biggest challenges was balancing my job with the kids' needs. I decided to go back to work part-time, which allowed me to be there for the kids while still maintaining my career. It was a tough decision, but it felt like the right one. My boss was supportive, and I was able to work from home a few days a week. The kids started school, and I was worried about how they would adjust, But they surprised me. They made friends and seemed to be doing well. Jake joined the soccer team, and Emma started taking art classes. Lily was a bit more reserved, but she seemed to be settling in. I was proud of them and relieved that they were finding some sense of normalcy. One night, after the kids were in bed, I got a call from my boyfriend. He had been thinking about our situation and wanted to talk. We met for coffee, and he told me he missed me and wanted to try to make things work. He said he was willing to give it another shot and see if we could find a way to balance our relationship with my new responsibilities. It was a difficult conversation, but we decided to take things slow and see where it went. As we moved forward, I started to feel more confident in my ability to take care of the kids. It wasn't easy, and there were still a lot of tough moments, but we were making it work. I was learning to balance my job, my relationship, and my responsibilities as a guardian. It was a lot to juggle, but I was determined to make it work. Looking back, I can see how far we've come. The kids are doing well, and we're starting to find our new normal. It's been a challenging few months, but I feel like we're finally starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Thank you for reading. Am I the idiot for ignoring my ex-husband's manipulative tactics and moving to another state? With my new husband. I, Hannah, met my husband Ben in 2015 through our mutual shared interests. We began dating, and at the end of 2016, Ben proposed to me, and I said yes. We had a wedding at the end of 2019 before Infection 19. I was the happiest I had ever been. I had married my best friend, and I believed that our marriage and relationship were perfect. We had our ups and downs, like any relationship, but we never had any significant fights or issues that would have tainted the relationship. After the Infection 19 lockdown ended, and we were able to return to work as normal and be more social, I started noticing changes in Ben. He would set up his work schedule so that he was away from home more. He wouldn't accompany me to things like movies or family outings. He would get short and snappy with me. He just began to feel cold and distant. In my heart, I felt like he had already left me. In March of 2022, I had to travel out of state for a weekend. While I was gone, Ben would not answer my phone calls, texts, etc. He also disconnected and deactivated the security systems at our home. All red flags. After crying and battling myself internally over what I should do, I decided to return home from the trip a day early without telling Ben. I got home at 3 a.m. on Sunday. Ben wasn't expecting me home until Monday. When I came into the house, Ben was asleep alone and his phone was beside him. I picked it up and walked out of the house to go through the phone, the first time I had done this in our relationship. The things I found made me sick. He had been sending pictures through Snapchat to various women. He had been Googling addresses and directions to different women's houses. I checked the GPS in his car, and the addresses had been entered there. Ben suffered from erectile dysfunction, so he kept Viagra in the house. I knew he had just refilled the prescription before I went out of town, so I grabbed the bottle and found that several pills were missing since I left on Friday. His screen time showed hours and hours logged in the messenger and phone, but he had deleted all phone call records and text messages so that I could not see who he had been communicating with. Then I found the Vault, an app where you can store photos and videos with password protection. I sent myself pictures of all the various evidence I had found on his phone. I woke Ben up and told him that we needed to talk. When he saw that I was holding his phone, he became as white as a ghost and tried to attack me to retrieve it. I handed it to him and told him I had already seen all that I needed to see. I asked him what the password was to the Vault on his phone, as we had an open device password policy in our relationship. He absolutely refused to give it to me. He told me he would rather end the relationship than give me the password. That told me everything I needed to know. I took steps the following few days to initiate divorce proceedings. I was so devastated that my rock, my best friend, my partner in life had treated me like this and so easily tossed our 7-year relationship away. I went into a state of depression. I could not eat and lost close to 30 pounds, could not sleep, missed several days of work, had to go to counseling and take medications to try to feel normal. After about 2 months of this, my best friend Mallory begged me to get on a dating app to meet some people. I was hesitant because I had never been on a dating app, but thought, what the hell? Maybe it will help me get over Ben. I joined Tinder and matched with Jake. Jake and I had a lot of fun chatting with one another and eventually decided to meet in person. I was open and honest about my situation with Jake and let him know about my divorce and ex-husband. Jake thought Ben was an idiot for ending our marriage and losing a woman like me. Jake and I increasingly began spending time together and were inseparable after a few weeks. A few months later, in the summer of 2022, Jake asked me if we could be exclusive. In December of 2022, Jake surprised me and asked me to marry him. I was a whirlwind of emotions, but I said yes. Of course, this news made it to social media, and that's when I began hearing from Ben again. Ben contacted me to let me know that it was embarrassing to him that I had moved on so quickly and that I was publicly engaged. He was also upset about my choice of partner, as he made sure to let me know that he did not approve of Jake for me. I don't even know why he cared, because he cheated on me and ended our marriage. Jake and I got married in 2023 at a tropical destination wedding. It was beautiful, and Jake went above and beyond to make it special for me. Now for an update. Ben reached out to me again to let me know that I looked like the cheater in our relationship because I moved on so quickly and got remarried. So, am I the jerk for moving on and remarrying quickly after my ex-husband cheated on me and divorced me? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, of course not. Not the idiot. Congratulations for the quick turnaround. Happiness works wonders to erase the awful things others have done. That's what hurts him the most. He would be happier if you were miserable like he is. Comment 2. Not the idiot. He cheated on you and left you. It's your choice what you do with your life afterward. He has no right to judge you. Congratulations on getting remarried, and I hope all goes well for you. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking with me through all of this. So after the wedding, Jake and I settled into our new life together. Things were going well, and I felt like I was finally moving past the pain Ben had caused. But then, about a week ago, something happened that threw everything into chaos. Jake came home one evening looking really stressed. He told me that he had been offered a huge promotion at work, but it required us to move to another state. The promotion was a big deal. More money, more responsibility, and a chance for Jake to really advance his career. But it also meant uprooting our lives and starting over in a new place. We spent the next few days discussing the pros and cons. On one hand, the promotion was a fantastic opportunity for Jake, and it could set us up financially for the future. On the other hand, I had just started to feel settled and happy again. Moving to a new state meant leaving behind my friends, my job, and the support system I had built after my divorce from Ben. I was torn, and so was Jake. He didn't want to force me into a decision that would make me unhappy, but he also didn't want to pass up such a significant career opportunity. As we were trying to make this decision, Ben decided to stir the pot again. He somehow found out about Jake's job offer and started sending me messages, saying that Jake was only thinking about himself and that I would be miserable if we moved. He even went as far as to suggest that Jake was using me to further his career. It was infuriating and confusing, and it made an already difficult decision even harder. Jake noticed that I was getting more and more stressed, and he asked me what was going on. I showed him the messages from Ben, and he was furious. He told me that Ben was just trying to manipulate me and that we shouldn't let him influence our decision. But the damage was already done. I started to doubt everything: Jake's intentions, my ability to adapt to a new place, and whether I was making the right choice for myself. In the end, we decided to take the risk and move. Jake accepted the promotion, and we started making plans to relocate. But things quickly went downhill from there. The stress of the move and the lingering doubts planted by Ben began to take a toll on our relationship. We started arguing more frequently, and the excitement we initially felt about the new opportunity was overshadowed by tension and uncertainty. The final straw came when we were packing up our house. I found a box of old photos and letters from my time with Ben. Seeing those memories brought back all the pain and betrayal I had tried so hard to move past. I broke down and told Jake that I wasn't sure if I could go through with the move. I felt like I was losing myself again, just like I did after my divorce. Jake tried to reassure me, but I could see the frustration and disappointment in his eyes. He had worked so hard for this promotion, and now it felt like everything was falling apart. We had a huge fight, and I ended up staying with Mallory for a few days to clear my head. During that time, I realized that I needed to confront my past with Ben once and for all. I couldn't keep letting his actions and words control my life and my decisions. I decided to meet with Ben and have a final conversation to get some closure. When I told Jake about my plan, he was supportive but also wary. He didn't want me to get hurt again, but he understood that I needed to do this for myself. The meeting with Ben was intense. He tried to apologize and explain his actions, but I could see through his excuses. I told him that I was done letting him have any power over me, and that I was moving on with my life, with or without his approval. After that conversation, I felt a sense of relief, but it was short-lived. When I returned home, Jake and I had another serious talk. He admitted that he was worried about our future and whether we could make it through this challenging time. I could see the doubt in his eyes, and it broke my heart. We both realized that the move had become a symbol of all the unresolved issues in our relationship. In the end, we decided to call off the move and take a step back to focus on our relationship. Jake turned down the promotion, and we agreed to go to couples counseling to work through our problems. It was a tough decision, but we both knew it was the right one for us. We needed to rebuild the trust and connection that had been damaged by the stress and uncertainty of the past few weeks. As we started counseling, I began to understand more about my own patterns of behavior and how my past with Ben had affected my relationship with Jake. I realized that I had been holding on to a lot of fear and insecurity, and it was time to let go and truly move forward. Jake also opened up about his own struggles and fears, and we began to rebuild our relationship on a stronger foundation. Thank you for reading. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day!